Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. I'm your host, Dr. Meg Meeker. And for many of us parents, it's a delicate balancing act, skillfully juggling our careers with our parental responsibilities. Some of us are driven by the ambition of career growth, possibly contemplating job transition, while others confront the challenges of sudden job layoffs. And unfortunately, these job transitions don't always unfold as anticipated. In fact, the latest statistics from the U.S. Bureau of Labor in August 2023 indicate an average unemployment period of 20.4 weeks, which roughly translate to nearly 5 months. So how can we reduce the time between jobs or enhance our current positions? How can we identify and apply these skills to our roles as parents, nurturing the future leaders of tomorrow? Well, today I am honored to introduce our very special guest, William Vanderblumen. William is not only the author of Be the Unicorn, but also the visionary CEO and founder of Vanderblumen Search Group, with an impressive 15-year track record dedicated to aiding organizations in talent identification, succession planning, and the cultivation of successful teams. His invaluable insights can be a game changer, influencing both our professional journeys and our roles as parents. William, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Meg. It's really, really great to connect and to be with you. And boy, I want to learn from you today.
We were talking before we started that there are a lot of times I ask authors to come on the air so they can really help our audience. And every once in a while, I want one just for me. And you are here just for me because I want to learn to be the unicorn. And you talk about these 12 very important skills that we need to have in order to really stand out. But you've had a very interesting career. You've been a pastor, now you have a business of your own. So what inspired you to understand talent and what sets top talent apart from regular talent, if you will?
Oh, there's a lot of questions. I'll try and be brief. As you mentioned, I'm a recovering preacher, so the rambling, can take a while.
Mhm.
I was fortunate to get to lead some really special faith communities early in my life, and then left there and went into the business world, and that's a whole nother podcast. So back up
Can
just a
I
little bit.
ask? Can I ask why you left, or do you
Yes,
not want?
that's fine.
Okay,
Why not?
okay,
It's a great story. It's a great ending to a story. How's that?
great.
So went through a divorce, which I would not recommend, and then found myself a single dad with 4 kids,
Mm,
and with 4 kids.
yeah,
So which is pretty unusual. It wasn't really a divorce the tabloids would have been interested in covering. Nothing splashy or you know,
yeah.
uh, interesting, just a kind of a tragic, fault on all sides sort of
Mhm.
thing. And I ended up in no shape to be leading anybody spiritually. I was just kind of a wounded mess. And then I got these 4 kids, and
Mhm.
that they have to eat too,
How
So
old were your kids at the time?
let's see. So our oldest would have been 13.
Mm,
Youngest would have been 2.
wow.
Yeah, and it was pretty even spread. But to have 4 of them, and I mean, just getting them everywhere was so.
Yeah.
So to solve that problem, fast forward a couple years, I got married and added 2 more, and then we added another one.
Oh my.
Yours,
So you're
mine, and
up to 7. So you have
we have
7.
7 kids. Yeah, everybody thinks we're either Catholic or from Utah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and so went through that divorce, needed to find a way to kind of repot, right?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, "Come help us." He was in oil and gas. I'm here in Houston, Texas. That's kind of what you do.
Mhm.
And I said, "I don't know your business." And he said, "Well, we can teach you the business, but you know people. So why don't we do a management rotation? We'll start you in the HR department. They're wonderful people. Uh, Paid me well, lots of flex time for me to be able to run kids places and such." and I hated it. It was just awful.
Oh.
It was not bad people. They weren't doing, bad work, although some people would say any oil and gas is bad work. But
Mhm.
it was just like, Meg, I spent my life training for one thing and then
Mhm.
I'm doing another.
Those are completely polar opposite fields of yeah,
Yeah, and I
professionally
mean,
too.
I get what my buddy was trying to do, but it was like there's I don't want to get all scriptural, but there's a line in there. Be sure not to put your light under a basket where nobody can
Mhm.
see it. And I
Mhm.
don't know how much light I have, but do have a lot of training and some degrees and that sort of thing that just were not getting used at all.
Mhm.
Um, so you know, I'll do good work. You know, as our mutual friend says, I was going to live like no one else, so I could live like no one else. Yeah.
Mhm.
And during the course of that first year, the CEO said, "I think it's time to find my successor." Now, this is a Fortune 200 company, so very, very large.
No, no, you're kidding me. He said
Well,
that to you?
no, he said it to everyone.
Oh, okay,
He'd been there
okay.
nine and
Sorry.
a half years,
Okay.
and for a Fortune 200, I mean, they had a larger valuation than Starbucks at the time,
Oh,
and 9.5 years is an eternity in a company that long.
yeah.
So he'd done a great job. They hired this thing called a search firm. I'd never heard of such a thing. I just been in churches. It takes forever to find new pastors. Like I was at First Presbyterian Houston as the senior pastor, head of staff. And within the little world of Presbyterianism, that's a really great church. Like it's
Mhm.
New York Yankees kind of thing.
Mhm.
And they took, great as they were, 3 years to find me.
Mhm.
I was there 6 years. They took 3 years to find the next guy.
Wow.
And everybody saw that as just that's how it goes, 12
Yeah.
years, six searching, six with somebody.
Wow.
And I watched this search firm start working at our oil and gas company. And 90 days after they got there, we had our new CEO.
Wow.
And I just thought, wow, maybe all this is coming together where a group of people I really love, they're doing things incredibly inefficiently for no fault of their own, but just haven't adapted and gotten with the times. Maybe I could take some of the business I've learned, something of what I've learned from faith community and help them out. And I've left out a lot of middle story
Mhm.
from, oh, I'm a single dad of four to this point. But Adrian and I've
Pretty
been married.
good. It's
Well,
that's
Adrian and I've
okay.
been
It's
married a
pretty
few
good.
months. We'd been married a few months. We had 6 kids. We had no money. We had a house we could barely afford. And I came home and said, Adrian, I think I'm supposed to quit my job and start something new for churches. Yeah.
And
So
she
she
just passed out? Uh-huh.
No, she looked at me dead in the eye and without a blink said, "Oh, that's because churches love new ideas, right?"
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That no one ever.
Yeah. Right.
So, and
Right.
and the
Yeah.
kicker, Meg, is it was the fall of 2008, which if
Oh,
you've
okay.
got younger listeners who aren't familiar, totally get it. Just Google 2008
Thank
economy
yeah.
or Google should I have quit my job in the fall of 2008, and you'll get
Mhm.
pretty uniform answers. That's a really dumb idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, Adrian frankly should get credit for starting the company. She should have said to me, I love your vision. I love your dreams and ideas. Go back to work. We got children to feed. And instead,
Right.
she said, let's give it a shot.
Wow.
And off we went with a very risky, but calculated, risky move. And now, 15 years later, we've gotten to work all over the world with some of the
Wow.
best movements I've ever seen. And it's branched out. It's no longer just churches find a pastor, it's
Mhm.
headmasters find a school, it's
Yep.
Dave Ramsey needs key staff, and there's sort of a values driven organization. It's compassion or world vision. It's really any
Wow.
sort of values based organization that wants to find their top talent and find someone who matches their core values
Yep.
and culture, usually in a faith bent. So,
Yep.
man, that was a
Yep.
long answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's a fabulous story. It's kind of the story you really can't you can't make it up.
Oh,
But it's wonderful because it's kind of like from chaos and disaster and pain to some more pain and then some
yeah.
more pain and then okay, we're going to pull out of this. And so it's a beautiful story, and I'm really glad that I asked why you left the church because it explains it gives a lot more depth to your story and also credibility to what you do. So you talk about um, in learning how to search for top people, that there are 12 traits that
Yeah.
I assume you look for in people in order to say you could be a good candidate for this job or this job.
Yeah, yeah, that is the current state. Getting to that place is a little bit of a windy road itself. We've grown every year that we've been around. We've never had time to actually work on what we do. We just keep doing it and try and, jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. It's just
Hmm.
lots of opportunities. So you do what you can to grow fast. And then this pandemic thing happened.
Yep.
And if you remember me saying churches, schools, nonprofits, our main part of our client base, all of them closed
Yeah.
indefinitely.
Yeah.
That
Right.
wasn't a lot of fun for
No.
anybody, but it left us with, we had to pivot and figure out how are we going to serve people. We had to live on cash reserves because nobody was hiring anybody. That's fine. You plan for rainy days. Um, but one thing we got to do was drop back and look at the work that we'd done over the 13 years leading up till then. And we realized we might actually have time to research and answer a question that's been bugging me forever. And the question is like, I don't know, Meg, you ever meet somebody, maybe it's a social setting, maybe it's at a conference or work or even an interview, and like within 5 minutes, you're sitting there going, this one is special.
Yes. Yeah.
This one's different.
I
It doesn't
I I
happen.
would I would call that intuition
Yes.
or experience, but you probably wouldn't, correct?
Well, I think intuition's a big part of things, but if you speak in a faith-based language. The intuition would be, God's sort of guidance or the Holy Spirit or whatever.
Mhm.
But God moves in patterns. People like to
Hmm.
think mystical intuition, but the Bible starts with God saying, "Let there be light," and what's the next thing He sets up? A calendar. So like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so
yeah,
for me, it's like, yeah, that's intuition, but or I'm gullible. But what are they doing
right.
that's causing those intuition bells to go off?
Yep.
And I've actually sat with some people who were super talented unicorns and I didn't catch it in the first 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
why'd I miss it? What should I be looking for? And
Mhm.
and in this shutdown of the pandemic, we were able to say, why don't we take a look at the best interviews we have ever done and do a forensic study?
Mhm.
So we found that in a search, you've got a lot of interviews at the beginning and then very few at the end, right?
Mhm.
At the end, maybe there are 8 or 10 interviews on a short list. They're long format interviews. They're in person, face to face. We realized we've now done 30,000 of those,
Wow.
and we've kept the data and the notes and followed career progressions. So we're able to say, all right, within the best of the best, who are the real, who are the really special people? And
Mhm.
we found them. And then we said, do they have anything in common? So we studied how they interviewed and how they performed and this sort of thing. And we found that they have a lot in common.
So wait,
And
excuse me,
yeah,
before you did this research and you knew all this, you're going along in your company and you're finding these top people, but not
yep,
necessarily with a plan. You're just meeting
yeah.
them and going, "Wow, that's the person." And then you
Well,
look back at it and go, "Oh, they all have something in common," or
yeah, yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know. Have you ever listened to your very first podcast?
No.
Don't.
No. No,
Don't.
I know.
Just
I've
don't.
watched my very first videos tell yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it's the
Yep,
worst.
yep.
Why
It's
did
the
anybody come
worst.
back? Why?
Yep,
So our first searches, it's a miracle that anybody hired us again. But we had a method I learned under a great guy, but during the pandemic, we're like, well, why waste a pandemic? Why
yeah,
not use it to study what we've learned and find a way to more quickly ascertain who is really, really special unicorn and make sure we don't miss any that might not set off the intuition bells.
yep.
So we found these commonalities among the unicorns we'd spotted, and a really interesting thing happened. The things they had in common were nothing that I would have expected. Nothing.
Really? Mhm.
Yeah, I would have thought super high intelligence. Nope. All different intelligence levels, IQs. Uh, got to go to a well-connected, pedigreed school. Ivy League, something like that. Nope. Nope, nope,
Nope.
nope. Maybe it's as simple as he was the quarterback and she was the head cheerleader. Nope.
No.
What we discovered was there were 12 habits, which is a
Mhm.
very intentional word choice for us because
Yes. No.
it's not like innate skill that you can't have. It's not they're all 6 feet tall. Well, I'm only 5'9". It's none of that. Habits that they practice that
Mhm.
anyone can learn to practice that are almost a default setting of habit for them and are incredibly uncommon among the rest of us.
So how do they get that first habit? Is it personality? Or is it someone taught them?
I don't know
Um,
the answer to that, but I
okay.
know that they're all that's maybe the next research project.
Mhm.
But I know that I was looking for what are the innate traits? How am I going to spot a unicorn quicker? And what we
Mhm.
uncovered was a set of habits that's actually a roadmap for anyone becoming a unicorn if they'll actually practice the habits that we discovered.
Mhm.
And the more we researched, the more we found, yeah, that's common in that's common in the unicorns, but it's so uncommon with anybody else.
Wow.
So one of them is we call it the fast, which is a little misleading.
Yeah.
It should be called the responsive.
Yeah.
Um, we are horrible at getting back to people.
Mhm.
I mean, miracle. All seven of our kids love God, love each other. We have a great family. We take trips together. There's no drama. It's pretty amazing. I mean, we got a lot to learn. But how many times has have I been on the receiving end of the question, Dad, you said you were going to get back to me on this, and I've failed to do it. I
Yep.
forgot.
Yeah.
Like unicorns are just almost OCD about
Yeah.
getting back to people quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's simple things. If you showed me the table of contents with the 12 habits, maybe we should have titled the book. Somebody said to me, William, you should have titled it So Maybe Mom Was Right.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
is pretty
Yeah.
much like what your mother
Yeah.
told you to be
But
good at.
nobody would read, yeah, but nobody, a lot of mothers would hand it out and nobody would read it. And I would be one of those mothers and my kids would go, "No, no, 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 no."
But
So,
I mean, it's like, dang, mom was right.
you're
Ugh,
right. But, you're absolutely right. As I think about, um, uh, top leaders, I remember I was looking for a new lawyer and I found 5 names and I emailed them all the same thing. And I said, "The first person that gets back to me, I'm probably gonna, hire him." And that's exactly what happened. And I found that the people sometimes who are the busiest get back to you the fastest.
Totally.
And it's really remarkable. So, do the people with the fast, do they do it better in their business than they do it at home? For instance, if somebody at work, um, they asked you for something, would you respond to them more quickly than you would to one of your kids?
Yeah, my non-scientific observation is the unicorns that are driven by responsiveness are driven toward the things that they are in love with.
Um,
And unfortunately for some, their love is focused on something very temporal and not going to last.
yeah,
Others, where it's family, like, no, I'm going to get right back to them.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
their priority. Yep.
yeah. Where is my devotion? And then I'm going to be really, really responsive on those fronts.
Mhm. Yep.
What's interesting is, I'd love to know how long it took that first lawyer to get back to you because people are terrible, even the fastest ones, at actually getting back really quickly.
Mhm. I wanted it by the end of the day.
Okay.
I really s I may I didn't say that in the email, but I was watching. I said, "I want it by the end of the day." Yep. Yep. So we have the fast, and let's move on and talk about, because I know people are dying to know, okay, what are other habits that a lot of these, unicorns that you looked back on all had? So were they all fast in getting back to people?
They all had some measure of the 12 habits. Some are better at one thing than another, right? I'm a
Mhm.
little better at being responsive. I, I'm
Okay.
yeah, I would, my staff says, William, you're not OCD. your CDO because OCD is not alphabetical. So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I never heard that's
so like
good. Yeah.
get
Yeah.
back to them super fast. But yeah, my sense is it's some measure of all of them. We actually went
Okay.
ahead and we kind of went all in. We hired psychologists and data scientists and built an assessment tool to let people see what are the three that I'm best at, where are the three that I could do a personal development plan with. Which, by the way, I have made all my kids read and study. Because when it gets down to like college applications, uh, first job search,
Yeah.
uh, how you come off with your teachers after you make a bad grade, every one of these 12 habits is fundamentally how do you as a human intentionally treat other humans?
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you do those things well, you can't go unnoticed.
Yeah. Yes. And when you talk about your traits, one is being authentic, and
Yeah.
responsive and agile. This is interesting because you don't think of these words as applying to top tier business people. Oh, they're authentic. You usually think just the opposite. That they come out and they have this sort of stiff face and they tell everybody what to do. But the really good leaders, um,
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Dave, our friend Dave Ramsey. He is who he is. No
Yeah.
apologies. And that's his brand, if you will. He never would say my brand is being authentic, but it
Right.
comes through. And I think of other top leaders, you're absolutely right. You would want to teach that to your kids. You need to be authentic. You need to be responsive. What about agility? What do you mean by, top unicorns need to be agile?
Can we go back to authentic
Yep,
just for a second?
you
Because
bet.
there's a quick parenting hack that I think will help a lot of people. It'll help your kids. Authenticity. You ever been with a really great leader and you leave your interaction with them and they're like, they were so busy and they made
Yeah,
me feel like I was the only person in the room.
yep, yep. They're totally focused on your face. Yes, uh-huh.
All the greats, all the
Yeah,
greats. So
mhm,
our kids, who that we don't have a lot of drama. We're very fortunate. We have two in college right now. With three out, two at home, two in college, and the two in college FaceTime their mother nearly every day.
mhm.
She's kind of embarrassed because some of her mom friends are like, "I haven't heard from my son," and she's like,
Yeah,
I'm just going to be
yeah,
quiet. But,
yeah,
so that super good communication, super healthy relationship. And because they are who they are, they FaceTime, they don't call. And
yeah.
so I wave, and of course, they kind of want to talk to me, but it's a mom thing more than
It's
anything.
a mom thing.
A-
Yeah.
And so they're FaceTiming, they're being intentional, they're being lovely. And you know what I see when they FaceTime? I see their nostrils
Ah,
because they're walking around with their phone down like
oh,
this and
oh,
face
yes,
pointing this
you're
way,
right.
and they're looking off in the sky and they're looking
Yeah,
every single direction except the camera. And I thought that is a hack right there.
yeah,
Do you look people in the eye?
yeah.
Like getting more specific. You want to teach your kid to do well in a job interview or a school interview or a meeting with a teacher. Don't just look people in the eye. 90% of humanity is right eye dominant. That means
Okay.
look them dead in their right eye, and you've got a 9 in 10 chance, I'm not kidding, of people saying, "They were looking right through me." Like I was the
Wow.
only person
Eh,
in the room.
wow.
Just
Mhm.
super simple hack that
Yeah,
will broadcast something that's so easy to adopt
so
and will
easy.
set
Yeah.
you so far apart from everyone
Mhm,
else.
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
agility, you mentioned agility.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, during that pandemic, the people that stood out at our company that I'm like, I don't care what the budget is, I'm never firing them. They were the agile.
Yeah,
They were the ones who were like, "Oh, we'll figure out a way. Let's pivot.
yeah.
Let's." And unfortunately, Meg, I think this is the one that goes away with time if you
Mhm.
don't kind of declare war on it.
Right.
And yeah, this dawned on me some years back. I'm a really slow jogger, and then I got
Yeah,
to an age where I needed to stretch because I was starting to have injuries and that sort of thing.
yeah,
And I hadn't been good at stretching. So touching my toes was harder than the 6 mile run. And
yeah.
I remember being in my house, and our youngest at the time, she was probably 3, somewhere around there. Those kids that age are just like super stretch Armstrongs, if you're old enough
Oh,
to
yeah,
remember.
yeah. Like rubber bands,
So
yeah.
exactly. Baby's balance, the whole so I'm sitting there trying to touch my toes, and our daughter walks in and looks at me and looks me up and down, and is just like sits down on the floor, ties herself into this human pretzel, and looks
Mhm.
up at me and smiles, and then stands
Yeah.
up and looks at me, still trying to touch me, and she laughs at me without saying a word and leaves the room.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I sat there for a minute and thought, well, it's a good thing she's the youngest, for
Yeah.
starters.
Yeah.
Uh, but then it kind of hit me. You know what, William? She can stretch and you can't. Every day you're alive, William,
So,
you
yeah.
get less flexible.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
biological fact, and
Yeah.
it's a mindset fact, and it's we get used to the way we've always done it fact. The older churches are, the less likely they are to be able to pivot.
Mhm.
It's everywhere. So the unicorns are almost always taking up a new hobby,
Mhm.
trying a new life skill.
Yep.
Let's cook
Yeah,
something
yeah.
different.
Or maybe not afraid of change or not afraid of failing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, they'll just go for it. They'll just go for it
Without
and think, yeah,
without being just hopelessly ADD and not addressing
yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
That's a
Truly
different thing.
not afraid. They're just say, I want to go for that. I want to learn it. I want to love it. But you're right. Some people are just very sort of stuck in a rut. And I do think, talking about this not just for business or work, but for life, these are very, very important life traits because if you can learn to be agile and adapt, women, I always say, mothers have to do this. We adapt to um, working, and then we adapt to being home, and then we adapt to our last kid going off to school. Then we adapt to an empty nest, and then we adapt to go. There's so many different changes, but that's so important. It's such an important skill because if you can't adapt, you're stuck, or women who have a difficult time adapting to empty nest. I mean, they can make
Sure,
it's that can be miserable.
sure.
And so I think, yeah, these are so did you teach your kids these habits and these
As
traits as
soon as
they're
as soon
growing
as
up?
we discovered them, yeah, we tried. As soon as
Mhm.
we discovered them, we got more tactical about it. I mean, a lot of this is intuition. You teach your kid to get back to people when they should. You teach your kid to be authentic, but now, now this is no longer William's 12 ruminations on what makes a great leader. No, this is actually we studied the best of the best, 30,000
Mhm.
interviews. The
Yeah.
data shows mom was probably right.
Yeah.
So so it's a
Mhm.
really simple book, like, here's a case study of a unicorn in this trait. Here's what we learned when we interviewed the unicorns. Here's what you can do to apply this to your life. Because the agility thing, none of those unicorns naturally stay agile. But for some reason, they have decided to keep trying new things,
Yeah.
even when it's not it's just not normal to keep trying new things as you get older. The
Mhm.
unicorns do. And anyone can, as long as they're willing to apply what we've learned here in these 12 habits.
Yep. I love you talk that every habit, kind of has 3 elements, what which is the data that probably you've studied on why that habit is transformative or maybe why people have it, what they've seen, and then what you do. So, talk us through that and where did you come up with is that something that you just came up with through your research?
Oh, I consulted a lot of people, and a good friend of mine said, "You know what? You ought to just make this simple. Make it
Mhm,
really simple. Let's find a case study of a unicorn in speed, right?
mhm,
In or the fast, in the authentic, in the so every chapter starts with a little case study, and then to back up the case study, here's what we learned. Because
mhm.
the big thing for me is that people understand this is not opinions. This is not some just sort
Right.
of, I read it on the internet, so it must be true. No, what we've learned, and then we interviewed the unicorns and asked them how they practice these things. So what we know, what what we know, what we've learned, and then what you can go do, like
Yeah,
real real time application of these things, so that you can, I can't make people take on these habits. It's kind of
yeah,
like I can give you a treadmill, and it can be a great place for folded laundry, or
Mhm.
uh, it can get you in shape. So
Mhm.
to me, keeping it as simple as possible was paramount. And people are going to read this and say, well, that guy's never going to cure cancer. That was pretty simple. But I
Mhm.
think this is a simplicity that lies on the far side of a complex research project.
If
And
you could
hopefully
had
it'll
to
help.
if you had to pick, well, because somebody asked you on a podcast obnoxiously, if you had to pick 3 of the top most important traits out of the 12, or the 3 that you feel are the most important to, talk to our listeners about, what would those be? And then how can you help them get started in teaching those to
Mhm.
their kids?
Yeah. How about, so first answer, what's the single most important habit of the 12? It depends on what you're doing with your life.
Mhm. Oh,
Like,
okay.
no, I mean, really, if
Yeah.
there's all this talk about work-life balance, and goodness knows moms that are trying to be a mom and do a career, they've got to watch balance and all. But if you decide that you're going to be an ambulance driver for the emergency rescue in whatever town you're in, you better get back to people quickly. If you're a chief compliance officer or a tax auditor, I would think the prepared might be the one that you focus in on. So it's kind of like you gotta read these things and say, what am I doing
Yeah.
in my life, and what are you'll figure it out. You're smart.
Yeah.
Like, what is the thing that's most important to me? Now, not trying to dodge your question. If everyone were doing the same job forever, what's careers aside or whatever you're doing aside, what's the most important? I I am learning a lot after doing a lot of these podcasts. I am figuring out that self-awareness is probably the most rare and the most powerful of all 12 habits.
That
Uh,
is so hard, though.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Self-awareness.
Oh, I
I
hate
mean,
it.
it how do you become I don't wanna go off on another, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
another whole podcast here, but just quickly, how do you learn to be self-aware? It seems to me some people are just pretty good at it. They're very empathic or empathetic or empathic towards other people. They wanna know how they're coming across to people, so they sort of pay attention to what they're doing or saying or not.
Well, I think some
So
people are more wired for it than others, but it's a
mhm.
habit anyone can learn. What's interesting is we asked the unicorns, which one of these 12 is your top gift? Okay. Self-awareness came in dead last.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Okay,
Well,
yeah.
actually, I think it's because they have self-awareness that they realize that they need more of it. Like, I think
Okay,
it's a
it's kinda like
self-fulfilling
humility.
sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and, so then we surveyed 250,000 people and asked them, "How are you in each of these areas?" And 93% of everybody surveyed said they were above average in self-awareness.
Really?
So that math
Wow.
that math doesn't work if you what I
No,
mean? Like,
no, it doesn't work. Yeah, yeah.
so, it's the least common among the self-aware, and it's the biggest blind spot among the rest of us. Now, the good news is we live in the best era ever to get in touch with who you really are.
Mhm.
You go online, take the disc, take the
Yeah.
Enneagram, take the Myers-Briggs, take a Strengths Finders, take our index that'll show you how you do in each of these 12 habits.
Mhm.
It'll at least give you some idea of where things are going. And so many of these now have a 360 component in it where
Yeah,
we did this for families with our index. A whole family could take it together and the kids can tell mom and dad how they think that it's kind of a fun little team building thing,
yeah.
but it'll be really powerful at work as well. And nobody really likes a 360. I remember, Meg, the first time I heard my recorded voice. You remember that?
Mhm. Yes, I do.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
and
that
that's why
is
it's a
not
hard
me.
time to listen, yeah, to your podcast or watch or whatever. Yeah, mhm.
It's not me. You've got the
Yeah,
wrong microphone. Get me a real
exactly,
microphone. Like, we're looking out of our own eyes, so we never have a real good vision of ourselves because all we can do is look out.
exactly.
So
Yes, yep.
I I would say the short answer is go take some self-assessments, do it in a team setting, do it where others are speaking into the same thing. It's never been more fair game to talk about learning about yourself than now. The
Right,
whole mental illness pandemic that came as a result of the shutdown and lockdown really, I think, opened the door to people saying, I'm trying to learn my issues. And it's
right,
not an embarrassing thing anymore.
right. And I'm trying to figure out why I'm struggling, or what is
Yeah.
happening, or why this is so hard for me. Yeah. What a wonderful exercise for families to do. It takes a lot of courage on a parent's part to be willing to listen to what your kids have to say to you. But it's very important. My adult kids will tell me a lot, and I really appreciate it. And I never realized how severely sort of ADD, I guess I was, until a few years ago. And my kid said, "Mom, how in the world did you ever get through medical school? You can't keep track of anything." And I said, "Really? I can't?" "Well, didn't you notice that you keep losing your purse or whatever?" So you have to be willing to listen, but it's
Sure.
hard, in particular if they were younger, but they have, your loved ones have so much to teach you about
Yeah.
yourself. Well, William, we're out of time. This has just been so wonderful. Your book, Be the Unicorn: 12 Data-Driven Habits That Separate the Best Leaders from the Rest. I love the book. I'm so grateful that you wrote it. And if people want to learn more about the book, or what you're talking about here, how can people find you and your work?
Yeah, well, the most direct way is to go. There's one website that's got everything from the family version of the assessment to all those things in the book. It's called theunicornbook.com. And
Theunicornbook.com. Love it.
yeah, and you know what's funny, Meg? Adrian posted something about it. Pre-orders started. Where Adrian doesn't post anything on social media ever, much less anything about my work, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But she posted one little thing, and all of her mom friends wrote her and said, "I just bought one for every one of my kids. I just bought
Love
one
it.
for my nieces and nephews for Christmas. They're getting ready to start college. They're getting ready." So there is something, we hit some nerve there with a gift to give kids. So
Yeah.
theunicornbook.com. And if you can't remember that, then just type Vanderblumen, however you want to type it into Amazon. My name's so messed up, it'll find me.
Yeah, but being the unicorn. Yeah, it is. There's so much, the applicability, the application. It can be so, for so many different areas of your life. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a kid, whether you're a student, whether you're employee, whether you lead a company. You know, these are habits that are really important for, if you want to be successful at anything in your marriage, at anything. So they're terrific. William, thank you so much for joining me today. Best of luck with the book. It's a fabulous read. I encourage everybody out there, whether you're a single mom or a grandparent or single dad, to pick up a copy of the book and read it. There's so much in there that you can learn about yourself and life. And I'm just very grateful that you came on and talked to us about it today.